Hey, welcome. We're back to YourGift.Life. This is Dave, and Toby's with me again. And we have a special guest this week, Coach Perry Hunter. We're really excited and honored to really have you on the show to talk about some of the awesome things you're doing, not only with your own show, but through your charity and your organization. And we hope to help kind of get the word out and hear some stories and hopefully
Yeah.
fire some folks up.
Well, first of all, when you use the word like honored, that's a little overwhelming. Honored. I don't know about honored, but just kidding.
Well,
Anybody would be honored.
yeah. Anytime we get to talk to somebody who's actually putting their foot that step forward and doing something, it's an honor that anybody would be willing to do that. So that's the reason I really was happy for you to be able to join.
No, I'm glad. Anytime I can talk about Jesus and things that we're doing, I'm all for it, especially in a public platform, because it's kind of awkward sometimes to do it in a public platform. But the older I get, the less I care about that.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah.
It is funny.
So if you would, you started a new blog, podcast, charity of some sort. Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Cornerstone Hoops and let people know just what's going on.
Yeah, going back years ago, I started going on basketball mission trips, and you can ask me about those. I've got plenty of stories. I've actually written a book now. It's having some issues with Amazon. It's not their fault. It's my fault. I'm self-publishing it, but it's got a lot of the stories that I've been through. But anyway, doing those things, I realized that I wanted to do more and more things like that, using basketball as a foothold to share the gospel. And I tell people all the time, if you're a basketball coach from the United States, and especially from Indiana, when you go into some place, they're very eager to listen to what you have to say about basketball. And the longer you're there, the more they'll listen to you about anything you say. But, I've been praying about it and was wanting to start a nonprofit, 501c3, I guess that's what it is. Yeah. And, it was one time in my life I've been patient with God, and that, I want to do this, but I also want the right time, and everything has to come along. And I didn't just kind of run headlong into it. And last year, Chris Garton, he's the CEO of Signature Countertops. He and I started, getting to be pretty good friends, and he's a businessman. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll ask him about how do I start a nonprofit? And he was like, let's do it. And he's been very helpful. But what we're going to do, and we're hoping once COVID, I'm hoping we're going to start this summer, maybe even before that, but we're going to put on free basketball camps, whether it's a 1-day thing, a 2-day thing. And I want to give them t-shirts, a basketball, and I want to go into places that maybe don't hear the gospel or don't get basketball camps a lot of times. So I want to go into places that, they're not on the, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not on the tourist spots. And, but I want to give them a shirt. I want to give them a basketball. I'm thinking right now I'm leaning in towards tennis shoes to take also, because a lot of kids in these places don't have shoes or good shoes. So I'm going to take some of those, and, we're just going to teach basketball. We're going to love on the kids and the parents and the people that are around, and share the gospel, whether it's blatant or whether it's just by loving on them. And got a couple things that I'm going to do with the basketball and the shirts. The shirts are going to have my Cornerstone hoops. It's going to be Cornerstone only. The T is going to be a cross, but it's not blatant. I think it's blatant, but I don't think people will see it that way. And then I have a basketball that's a globe. And then on the back at the top, I'm going to have capital JN and then Roman numerals 111.xv1, John 3:16, so that it's not, like, hey, come and get me because I'm violating some laws in your country. But it's something that people will, and it's going to be on the basketball too. And if people are interested, they can go Google it. They Google that, it'll come up, John 3:16. It'll have my website will be around. There'll be that JN number, and people can click on that and find the gospel. So I'm going to share it with them face to face, but I've already been asked to go to a couple places where, it's not real safe to say you love Jesus and let me tell you about Jesus. So I wanted to do something where I was going to share the gospel in maybe kind of a subtle way also.
So how are people getting in contact with you to determine where you want to go and where you want to visit and do these camps?
Well, I don't know if it's a good thing, bad thing, but I've done a lot of traveling and I know a lot of people. I've met them through social media or face to face. And, I've already got, my board of directors are Chris Garton, Bryant Northern, and Kristen Maddox. What is her last name now? Oh my gosh, that's terrible. She's married and know her husband, and he's Kristen Maddox Cox, and Tom Crean. Tom Crean's on my board of directors, and
wow.
So I have contacts in Athens, Georgia. So when we get going down by where UGA is, I have a contact in Baton Rouge. Former preacher of mine works down there at LSU. I have a coach at Division II Minot State in North Dakota. He said he's got a lot of Native American reservations. We could go up there. I've got a guy from Bangladesh that I've been in contact with. Got a guy in Israel. I was going to go do one in Israel this past summer, but COVID kind of got in the way. And I know people in Australia. I know people that know people all around the world. And when you say free basketball camp, a lot of people are happy to do that. The problem, it's going to be financial stuff that, cannot afford to do these things. And, I am going to ask people to partner with me and to help along with what we're doing. Cause you get a lot of, hey, that's great, but I can't do it unless I have the financial means. And, that's what Cornerstone Hoops, why I started it. But, Toby, I mow the grass at Silver Creek schools, and that I made about 8,000 or 9,000 doing that. Most of that's going to go into it. I've looked at a couple other little side jobs that I'm going to be making money. So it's not like I'm saying, hey, give me money and I'm not going to put anything into it. I'm going to, bust my behind and put a lot of my own money in it also.
How can somebody actually, if they wanted, just hearing this tonight, decide to want to go ahead and donate? What was the easiest way to do that?
Well, cornerstonehoops.org is my website, and I don't have a place where you can donate yet. I've got a couple places, but it's got my post office box, 194 in Sellersburg, Indiana. My cell phone number's on there, 502-445-6311. If anybody would ever want to talk about, Toby, I put my cell phone out there. I don't care. If you want to talk to me about God, Jesus, or what I'm going to be doing, what we're going to be doing with Cornerstone Hoops, feel free to call me. And, I've already got but I threw in some money and I've had a couple other people. So I'm right around $4,000 already.
That's great that you've already been able to get that.
Yeah.
Are you planning any fundraisers or anything here to help bring some of that in?
Well, it's a good question. I've thought about it, and that's something that, it's kind of you got to pay money to get money. And if I could get someone place to donate something, because I've already got presentations, I've got things ready to go and run. If anybody would want to have me speak somewhere. But yeah, we're just now into January. We haven't been official. We've been official since September, but I haven't really I guess you could say I did not hit the ground running. I'm kind of going slowly, but that is definitely something that I'm keeping in mind. I'd love to have like a dinner or something and speak and have a couple of different speakers and show them what I've done in the past and what I want to do. And, I'm not asking for thousands and thousands of dollars, but I would like to be able to take people and, drive them so that if I say, hey, David, Toby, you guys want to go, the only thing you got to pay for is your food. I've got a room for you. I'll take you. And it's something that you can give back without costing you an arm and a leg, because people's time is more important than the cash. So I would love to be able to pay for people to do that. And whether it's flying somewhere also.
Yeah, and I was, my mind immediately went, of course, to what you're doing as part of the mission, but with your resume and your contacts just in the coaching space. I mean, families and kids are hungry for coaching clinics and stuff like that, even here locally, and how that
Right.
could be potentially
Mhm.
leveraged as a way to raise funds.
Well, that's what I talked to a preacher in Austin, Indiana. He's gung ho that he's told me he's got a gym up there that we could use. I know people in Louisville, so it's just going to be, hey, work. It's going to be working the times out because I know there's a lot of people. Again, it's free and it's for kids who may not always get free for something like that. They may get to basketball camp and it's reduced, or they just can't afford to go. But the basketball, I'm telling you, that's the sneaky way in there. I just want to love on people and help them out, help communities out any way that I can. Toby and I have talked about that before, that I just feel so blessed. And, I'm not a multimillionaire by any means, but I have a job that I love. I have a beautiful wife I love. I have 2 kids that are, at least I think, well behaved. Got a nice house, nice community. I mean, all these things that I've gotten, and there's a constant burning inside of me to help others, to give back. And it was there before I became a Christian. But then once you feel I guess the depth of what Jesus did on the cross for you, then for me, you could never, ever repay that. And I don't feel like I need to go out and do things to repay what Jesus did for me. I want to.
Yeah. Are there, as you think back to any stories of past missions or times, lives that you feel like you've changed, and, how, like you said, basketball was kind of the front door into the heart, maybe in some ways. Like, is there one that just told you, like, man, I gotta commit to this. This is something that I gotta keep
There's
up.
two big ones. I went with Robbie Spear in Sports Reach. You guys ever heard of Robbie Spear?
Mm-hmm.
He does kind of a small sports based faith thing, like kind of what I'm doing. I'm smaller than him, but he asked me to go on a prison mission trip, and it was the first time I'd been to Clark County Jail, and that was, I'm a good kid. Like, I didn't have any trouble with the law growing up. So Clark County Jail was overwhelming to me, but we went to a prison in Florida, and we were there for a week from like 9 a.m, go to lunch, come back until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And the first day, every day, but the first day was really overwhelming when, like, there's a lot of doors that lock behind you as you're walking in, and you get out there in the yard and you're surrounded by murderers, rapists, child molesters, like what society has kicked to this place. And you realize, like, if something goes down, there's no fast way out of here. And that was one of the moments where I was just like, I got to put this in God's hands, and whatever happens, happens. I was scared. That lasted about an hour. I've never been around a group of people who were so thankful that you came to see them and spend time with them than the people in the prison. But there was a basketball game going on, and this guy came up and he was just like, man, I really appreciate you coming here. And, this just doesn't happen. And you're from Indiana, so you've taken time out of your life to come all the way down here. People just don't come. My own family doesn't come and see me. He goes, so what are you down here for? And I was like, hey, good question. I said, do you believe in God? And he was like, yeah, I guess I do. He goes, I got a lot of stuff to clean up, though, before I can believe in all that stuff. And I was like, no, actually, that's not how it works. And I said, Jesus wants you right now. He wants you to give your life to him right now. And then you'll be amazed at how you'll clean your life up after. And he's like, I don't know. I go, do you know that Jesus, if he was in this prison right now, would not be hanging out with the guards? He'd be hanging out with you guys. And he just kind of looked at me. He was so confused. There's a guy who'd probably been in the church, but it never dawned on him that, he would have, if Jesus comes, he's going to hang out with the people that are, got it all together compared to them. And we had probably about a 15 to 20 minute conversation about that, and that Jesus, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm telling this guy, like, I hope he doesn't it doesn't cause an issue between him and the guards, but I wanted him to know that Jesus loved him that much, and that he would have come in there and spent time with him and not the guards, or with the warden, the main guy. And he goes, "You give me a lot to think about." Now I don't know what happened from there, and it's one of those things you won't find out till you get to heaven, but I know that I planted at least a seed, and hopefully it grows. Other people plant, and water that seed. The second story, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, and we went to, I'm trying to think, it was Eastleigh Slum. Eastleigh Slum in Nairobi is called Little Somalia. A lot of Somali refugees have left Somalia and end up in Nairobi, and they've made it into this Eastleigh Slum. Now, I didn't find this out until we got back that night, but I went home, or we went back to the hotel and Googled it, and Eastleigh Slum is a no go. It's a no-go place for American citizens. It's on the State Department's website. They've told you don't go there. Okay. Well, nobody knew that going in. So we drive in, and if you've ever seen Black Hawk Down, okay, have you guys seen that movie, Black Hawk Down? You seen it, Toby? It looked just like that. We're driving in a car, and there's people walking in the street, on the sidewalks. There are people riding camels in and out of the street. It was just, it's a culture shock, but it's stuff I love. So we go to this little Mennonite school. It's a Mennonite, like the people that live in Lagodi, Indiana, Southwest Indiana, Amish Mennonites. It's a Mennonite school. It's a Christian school. They're proud of the place, but they are surrounded by extremists in this neighborhood. And they've actually been left alone because they do so much good. And the people would not be happy if the extremists did anything to this school. Well, the main terrorist group in this place in Eastleigh is Al-Shabaab. I don't know if you've ever heard of Al-Shabaab, but it's the youth. And so we're in the gym, and first thing, the head coach has traveled some to, and we start looking for a back way out. Like, we get in there and we're looking for a back way out. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, we just need to know where we're going to go if we need to get you all out of here. We're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours. And the coach and I both were like, no, we're going to go an hour, and we're getting out of here. And, one of the players asked, why an hour instead of 3 or 4? We could do a lot of good here. I go, because word of mouth, like, we can get in and here and out in an hour, and it's going to get around that we're here. I mean, a van full of white people pulling in to this church school, it's going to get around. And we've got 20-year-old women. We had a women's basketball team too, and they're in short sleeves and shorts, and nobody else is. No other female is wearing that. So it's like an hour, we'll be able to get some stuff done. We can get in the vans and we can get out of here. So we're about 15 minutes away from being finished. And the guy that runs the sports academy there, I just walked up to him and said, "Hey, do you ever have any trouble with Al-Shabaab here?" And he said, "Oh, coach, I could tell you so many stories." He said, "But we don't have time." I go, "Well, I mean, has Al-Shabaab ever bothered you?" And he kind of stepped back, looked around, and he said, "Al-Shabaab is in here right now." And, I was just like, okay, because there were people, the door was open, people were coming in and out and watching what we were doing. And there's men sitting up there. And he no sooner finished that, I kind of looked around and started to feel overwhelmed. He goes, "But you know who else is here?" And I go, "Who?" He goes, "The Holy Spirit." And I mean, I got cold chills. And I was telling Toby, you're dealing with somebody who lives in the midst of that situation. He has to rely on God every day. He believes the Holy Spirit is in that gym right there. The least I could do is try to do something to make other people's lives better living where I live with, how I've been blessed. But those are, I could sit here and tell you story after story after story that I know God was working in me and in the situation and has led me to where I am right now.
Yeah. What's crazy about the stories that you tell is, and what's driving you there is, I think a lot of people feel the same way that you did and
Mm-hmm.
do, where they're driven to do something, they just don't know what to do yet.
Right.
And Dave and I was talking back right before Thanksgiving about what can we do and where can we go, and it was just something that both of us were basically saying there's got to be more that we can do, because how blessed each of us
Right.
are in our lives, that it needs to come out in some way to show, and really that's kind of how this got started with us.
Mm-hmm.
But really kind of the same kind of story that you talked about. Now, what I'm kind of curious on is it only what you're going to do, these basketball camps, and you're going to go to different places, is all going to be overseas? Anything going to be in the United States?
No, I'll go wherever I'm called, wherever anybody wants me to come. I don't care if it's in Sellersburg. I have reverse culture shock when I come back from some of these trips, especially the overseas. You come back here and people are complaining about things that, would be a total blessing for some of the people that I live or I've seen and met overseas. I tell people all the time that we're urinating in our drinking water in the United States. We fight and argue over the dumbest things when what we have here is the rest. And I think some of it is people just don't travel. The rest of the world does not work like the United States. The United States, maybe some Western Europe, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, but the other 90% of the world is just not, it doesn't work the way that it does here. But yeah, I'll go anywhere. Like I said, Louisville, Austin, Indiana, Charlestown, Sellersburg, Minot, North Dakota, Athens, Georgia.
Yeah, because I just think there's so many different areas. I mean, even if you're able to do something here in your hometown, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of kids that don't sign up for the high school basketball camps because they can't afford the $35 or $40 or whatever it ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of them going to, say, Graceland or something like that, where they will do scholarships or whatever.
Well, see, that's one of the things on I'll speak for Silver Creek basketball because I'm an assistant there, but that should never be a reason why a kid doesn't come. We are willing to work. We've let a lot of kids come for free. Coach Hoffman is, we've got that money. It's a fundraiser, and a lot of people pay that money to come, and we really appreciate it, but we don't want that to be something that keeps a kid from coming. And, Coach Hoffman totally supports, if a situation warrants it, come on. But anyway,
that's awesome.
So maybe people don't know that as much as we need to get that out there. But then again, you got to be careful, because then, people take advantage of it. I think that's probably one of the toughest things that I have had to learn to deal with, is that, if you do good things, people will take advantage of it. And I tell my kids all the time, if we've got some money and a homeless person has a sign, if I give them money or not, that's between me and God. What that guy does with that money is between him and God. So if we're going to do good stuff, we're going to get taken advantage of. That's between, them and God.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times the people that I've worked with when I work downtown, that I would be walking past somebody and they'd ask me for money and I'd give them money. And then they're like, well, he just asked you for money yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, and I'll probably give him some tomorrow if I have it.
Right.
But it's that mentality. What he's doing with it, that's on him. What they're going to do with it, it's just it's the calling that you end up have within yourself.
Correct. That's how I believe. Yeah. And I've had this conversation with a few when it comes to politics, if you push me, I'm probably going to fall to the right a little bit, but I have a lot of issues that I'm very left of center. And, I've had some conversations with some people that we need to be more Christians like Stephen and less like Mike Pence. Mike Pence is a great guy. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. He's a great Christian, but Stephen in the Bible was willing to be stoned to death for his beliefs. And I'm not sure most American Christians are. And that's a whole nother thing we could talk about, American Christianity. I really feel like it is ill, very ill. When you go to some of these places overseas and they have to rely on God every single day. It is real. It's a real faith that, it's another reason why I want to do this, because I'm addicted to going and being around these people who are true followers of Jesus.
You mentioned earlier that you wrote a book. What's the title?
Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah. Right here. I had one laying around here. This was a complete accident. Part-time missionary, full-time follower. So I told you I had some issues with the book. So I have one of these in my classroom too. I said, I wrote in this book everything that I know about life. Yeah. So I made a mistake and there's no words in it, but I think the cover looks good.
Yeah. So when will that be places people can buy it?
Oh, it's tomorrow. I'll probably, when I get some free time, I'm almost fixed. There's some things on it that need to be fixed, but it'll be on Amazon, but I'm not looking to make any money off of it. I really just want to have it. So if I do go speak or I talk to somebody, I can give them this and say, this is what I've done. And people look through it and go, oh, I'd like to give that guy some money so he can continue doing this.
How long did you work on that book?
We talked about this, didn't we?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I was telling the stories in class. I tell them every year, and I thought I've got to get these down in words for my kids. That's another reason why I wrote that book, is so I can give this to Madison and Brandon, my two kids, and they can go, this is my dad. This is what he did. But I don't know. If you talk about the experiences, it's 10 years. I probably 6 months writing it out, gone through it over and over again. And it won't be perfect. There'll be some misspellings and some wrong commas, because when you self-publish, I did have somebody say that they would publish it for me, but I'd have to pay them $5,000. And it didn't seem like a lot of money, but I started thinking, why would I pay somebody when I can go on Amazon and if something happens and people want it, then I'm sure people would, publish it without me having to pay $5,000.
One of the things that I see that you post quite often is about books that you've been reading.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love it.
How often do you try to finish a book? And is there any ones that have popped up recently that have made any impact on you?
Let's see. I keep track when school starts, and I'm at about 20 books since school started. And I try to read. I'm usually reading 2 or 3 at a time. I've got one here at home, and then 1 or 2 at school that I'm reading whenever we do reading time. But I can tell you right now, Lead for God's Sakes by Todd Gongwer. If you're a basketball coach or a coach, you've got to read that book. It's a parable about the heart in coaching. I wish I'd have read it when I was in my 20s. There's been multiple times I buy copies just to give away. It is that good of a book. Any book by Bob Goff, you cannot go wrong. Everybody Always, or Everyone Always, or whatever. It's a great book. I'm reading one right now that is, I think every American Christian should read, and it's Put Down the Stones by Carlos A. Rodriguez. It is unbelievable, and it will challenge I believe that Christian nationalism is a problem in this country, and we use, like, the other a couple weeks ago, people were protesting in Washington, and they would have these "Hang Mike Pence" signs along with "Jesus saves" signs, and it's like, okay, this something's not right here. But the book by Carlos A. Rodriguez is it's very challenging, and a lot of people would think that it's very left of center, but I think it's actually being a Christian. It is it's so good. We tend to, but I could go off on that. Dream Big by Bob Goff, I've got laying here.
Love Does by Bob Goff's really
Yes,
good as well.
yeah. Now, which one is it? Love Does, that has his cell phone in the back of the book?
He says he puts it in at the back of most of them, but yeah,
he gets about 200 to 300 texts, phone calls a day. This is a national writer. This is, he actually, I read Dream Big by Goff, and he talked about, what do you have to lose? And while I was going through Cornerstone Hoops, and I was thinking board of directors, I was like, gosh, Bryant's a good guy, friend of mine. He's on board. Kristen, I know her. I was wanting diversity. I was wanting a female, but that were hugely qualified. It's not because he's black or she's a woman, or Chris Garton, is the CEO of Cornerstone. These are people that I respect, and I did want to have some diversity. But I was thinking, who in the world do I know? Who's the biggest basketball person that I know? I've talked to, texted back and forth, and I'm reading this book, and I'm like, back in 2012, I was in the school at Henryville, and Tom Crean reached out, and we got to be pretty close there for a couple of years. And I would go to basketball. It is so funny. I'd take friends to basketball practice at IU, and Crean would be talking to like nationally known ESPN guys. And he would see me and stop talking and come through and hug me with, I was like, talk about a popular guy. But he, I thought, I'm going to reach out. I hadn't talked to him in a few years, and I got a hold of the ops person. She got back to me and said, yes, he remembers you. He's considers you a friend, goes through all the stuff. Here's his personal email. And, Bob Goff I was like, okay. So I emailed Crean. He gets back to me. Yes, I'll be on your board of directors. I completely agree with what you're doing and want to support you as any way I can. So thanks, Bob Goff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time, but we really appreciate you coming on.
Mm-hmm.
You said your website was cornerstonehoops.org.
Correct.
I know that you have some podcasts and some YouTube channels.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go ahead and rattle off some of the things you got going on with all the different social media?
Well, my Twitter is right there. My Twitter account at Coach P_Hunter. So if you get on there, you're going to find a lot of things. The cornerstonehoops.org, cornerstonehoops.org. If you get on that, my blog is on there. There's just different about it. I'm one of those people. I pretty much put it all out there online. If you want to find anything out about me, my blog is connected to that. My blog, I don't even coachperryhunter.blogspot.com. It's connected to that, but it's got about everything I've ever done as far as travels, my resume, pictures, places we've been. P.O. Box 194 in Sellersburg, Indiana is my mailing address. The YouTube channel, you can find it on Facebook with Cornerstone Hoops. I got my own Facebook page for that, but it's just, I do need financial help with this. And, you can sit here and, I thought, well, what do I tell people when I go speak? Well, here's what I'm going to do. These are the things I want to do, but I can't do it by myself. I can do it small and do it by myself, or I can get help and do it bigger. And you could be a part of it and go work camps and, whatever. But prayer, people, I definitely, if you're listening to this and you can't afford, or and it's not something that you're feeling led to donate to, please pray for me and for the mission, because I appreciate that. Beyond, like, you can't, people, prayer means nothing. No, it means a lot. That means somebody's thinking about you. And I do believe in the power of prayer. And if you want to, you may not want to volunteer money, but you want to volunteer your time sometime. I'm getting a running list of people who are like, hey, I'm interested. And I know how it is. I've had people ask me, you want to do this? Well, I'm busy right now, but keep me in mind. And, I want to be able to run down that list. And if you say, hey, put me on the list, and then you never help, that doesn't bother me. It will not bother me, because I know how busy people get. And, but no, I don't know. You got any, hey, it's 8:49. I'm free. You guys want to talk? Talk. I got to get up, and I got a student teacher now. So he's going to start taking over my economics classes. So I'm going to have some free time during the day if anybody wants to reach out and talk. But no, we can go as long as you want.
Okay. Yeah.
Get off. If you're done hearing me talk.
No. It's just always one of those things. We're always worried about making sure we're conscious of people's time and effort. So no, I mean, I love hearing the stories. I like the fact that we've talked about some other folks on this podcast, but there's people who talk about doing things, and there's people who will donate some money, and then there's people who actually step in and actually put one foot in front of the other and actually do the work. Well, and that's what you seem to be doing.
Well, I try, but there's a cop out a lot of times for Christians in that, well, I don't feel called to go and do anything. I feel, but I'll give you some money, or I'll put you in contact with somebody. But the thing is Jesus didn't say, hey, if you don't feel called to go, do this. No, Jesus said, go. He didn't say there are other, you don't feel called to go. That, if you believe in Jesus, you follow Jesus, he said to go. And if that may be Macedonia, or it may be across the street, but if you don't go and put one foot in front of the other, then you're not really listening to Jesus. But who am I? Somebody's listening to it right now and be like, who does he think he is? I'm just quoting what he says.
Yeah, no, he was pretty clear about that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about going to other countries, one of the things that we've seen and heard, and is how poor, to your point, a lot of these places are, and having a hoop oftentimes is a stretch. So have you found yourself in places to where you'd hope to go, use basketball as a way in, but football or soccer was pretty much where you had to land?
Well, when we were in Ethiopia, I'd gone to Kenya, and then I extended my stay by 5 days, and I went with a couple other people to Ethiopia. And Coach Hoffman let me take basketballs. Coach Hoffman I love Coach Hoffman at Silver Creek, but that dude, he doesn't like to go anywhere. Like, to him, going to Florida on vacation, he does not like it. He's like, why do I need to go anywhere? I can see it. Why do I got to go to Ethiopia? I can get on and watch videos about Ethiopia. But he will donate things, and he's donated shirts, and we had some basketballs, but we're in Ethiopia, and we get the basketballs out, and they're telling me this is the only basketball team within 100 kilometers, and we're in the middle, like, we're driving to get to this place, and it is 1,000 years ago. People, the way they are living, and mud huts, and goats pulling a cart, and it is. And the first thing one of the kids did when we handed the balls out was he dropped it on the ground and started kicking it. And I was like, no. This is basketball. But they actually did have a goal there. One goal on a dirt court. And you didn't really understand a lot of English. But when you show them what to do with basketball, with drills and different things, it was fine. But that you want to talk about, that's probably, Eastleigh was pretty bad, but so where I was there in Ethiopia was about 3 miles southwest of Addis Ababa, the capital, and we're surrounded. The whole area is Islamic and a lot of fundamentalists. And about 6 months before we got there, they were in the Capitol, and a lot of people showed up. They were ready to burn the place down, destroy it, kill them. And they were gone. And a lot of the locals showed up and said, get away. They've opened a clinic there. They've given a lot of time and effort into the children there. So they got those fundamentalists out of there. So when I'm there, they have 24/7 security guys walking around in the middle of the night, walking around armed. And we found out, I think it was about 6 months after we left, they were in the Capitol, and they finally went ahead and they burned down everything they built there, destroyed everything. And these people, they're amazing people. They're over there living their lives. You want to talk about putting one foot in front of the other. And they said they're going back. They're going to go back and rebuild. And wow. I mean, it's just the little thing that I do. Hey, you want to play some basketball? And then they've got these people willing to go back and risk their lives for what they believe in, and because they love those people.
So you mentioned the language barrier. What other kind of barriers? I mean, I know I'm assuming language would probably be one of the biggest struggles. Other than language, is there any other barriers that you've had or you anticipate potentially having when you're doing some of these camps overseas?
Language, being able to have the equipment. We're going to have basketballs, and we're going to have certain things because they won't have it there. The good thing is that I will be able to take some basketballs with me, but about every city in the world has a sporting goods store. And when I was in Aruba, I was able to buy a couple of nets and a couple of basketballs for the coach. When Colombia, when we were down there, a young guy, he was coaching a team, and his dad wouldn't let him use the balls if his team was practicing also. And the balls were terrible. They were slick. They were not good at all. So coach and I that was with me down there, we went to a sporting goods place and I think we bought 5 basketballs and a thing to carry them in, all brand new. And we gave them to this young guy coach. And I thought he started to cry. And I made sure that when I told him, I was like, these are yours. Your dad does not get to borrow them. But he's that guy's he's down in Cali, Colombia, pouring into these young women, and he's got a girls basketball team that he coaches. And every day these guys are, it's an afterthought for us a lot of times. For them, it's an everyday thing in which they're giving back in a way that, we, during COVID can't go eat at a restaurant and think it's the end of the world. We're inconvenienced.
Yeah. I mean, even with your schedule, you gotta, I know with practices and games and teaching and everything like that, it's hard to have the time and effort to do any of that stuff. So we always make the excuses. Well,
right.
I'm working or
I'm busy.
Yeah. But,
it's choices. You're busy by choice, and you make choices on what you want to be busy with. And I've chosen, and again, I'm too busy. My kids are in sports, all these things. But when I can find a spring break or a week here, I told my wife the other day that I think that, and I'm going to say this and put this out there, and you're going to hold me accountable to it, but not this summer, but the next summer, I would love to go around the world. Go to New Zealand, do a camp for a day or two, go to Indonesia for a couple of days, go to Bangladesh for a couple of days, go to India, Israel, Western Europe, and come back home and just fly around the globe doing that. Because I love to travel, and this stuff is killing me. COVID is not being able to go places. Again, first world problems, but maybe as a celebration post-COVID, just do an around the world trip.
Who knows? We may still be going through it in a couple of years. It seems like when this stuff started, I was like, oh, by June, July, August, we're going to be through all this last year. And I'm like, now you're like, who knows?
Yeah, and it is what it's what we've the attitude I've tried to have is it is what it is, and you can get upset and frustrated about some of the things that are going on, or you can make the best of it. And when I've interviewed Tani Spasev in Macedonia, and I interviewed Coach Foster in Australia, and Coach Munye in Kenya, they're all dealing with the exact same thing. This isn't a Sellersburg thing. This isn't a U.S. thing. This is a global thing.
It's amazing, but it does. One of the things that we've almost everybody we've talked to, they talk about how COVID has put really a damper on everything that they're doing. They're not able to do what they want to do. Like you said, maybe not this summer, but next summer. And
Right.
but what breaks my heart when you say that, and it's not on you, it's that if you could do it this summer, you probably would.
Oh, I'd go right now.
And if you could go right now or this summer, who are you not going able to reach that you would
Right.
be able to reach? And it's heartbreaking to think that we're so beholden to this virus that's keeping us here and not being able to do what really that for you that God is pushing you into doing.
Well, it goes back to being patient. There's a time for it, and right now is not the time. So I'm able to, maybe get some money built up, get the word out there, talk to you guys. I could sit here and be like, whoa, woe's me, I didn't get to do this or that, or I can do other things. So, I got so tired of hearing about how bad 2020 was. We were inconvenient. Now, look, I'm not trying to minimize. People died. People have died from COVID, and it's a terrible thing. And I know people who've died from it. People lost their jobs. There's people that are economically ruined and may never be able to get out of it completely. But overall, most of us were just inconvenienced. And 2020's that bad. Well, like I've said, let's go to Eastleigh Slum, or the slum in Indonesia, where we painted a basketball court and fixed the goals. How different was their life in 2020 compared to 2019? They still didn't have food to eat. They still didn't have clean water to drink. They still didn't have a clean place to live. So, people talk about white privilege. There's a lot of a thing I call American privilege, where we think, oh, I cannot go to a restaurant. They're trying to take all my rights away. and really, it's an inconvenience for most of us. But I'm not trying to minimize it at all. It is a serious thing, and has killed over 400,000 people in this country. And it's a bad thing. But I would go right now. I've been wearing a mask. I wash my hands. Try to stay away from people. But I'm not the most outward person a lot of times by showing people how I feel. But I've learned that I really do like to shake hands and hug people. Like, I'm really missing that, and I'm starting to violate it more and more. Where you go do the side hug, and people need that. People need that touch, that attention. I know some people who are very individualistic, don't like to be touched. They're starting to feel it. Like they need some kind of human interaction. But it's it is. It's a little virus that you can't see with your own eyes, and it's keeping so many people from doing things that they want to do. But it is what it is, and we'll get prepared, and maybe when it opens up, we'll be completely ready to go.
Yeah, like you mentioned, one of the things that you wanted to do with these is not necessarily just teach basketball, it's to love on people.
Yeah.
And part of that is just going up to a kid makes a good shot, go up there and give them a high five or give them a big hug.
Right.
And those are the things that doing that will impact you probably as much as anything else as a kid after making a big shot coming up and giving you a big hug.
Yeah,
and missing things like that. That's huge.
And all the trips that I've been on with Athletes in Action or on by myself, you can't put a measure on making a kid laugh, making a kid have a good time. I don't know what they're going through, but maybe they'll remember this for the rest of their life. Maybe that plant, they'll be like, yeah, I remember that guy, fat, bald guy that came and did basketball. And that was so much fun. It might be 10 years later and be like, hey, I'm going to look that guy up. And then, we get them into contact and they get saved. And, I don't know. Your son hasn't had me in class yet, but I like to have a good time. I like to joke around and I like to make people laugh. And, we got a lot of things that we worry about, real things that if you can make somebody smile or laugh or happy. I tell people all the time, the only reason I would want to be famous, the only reason is that when I walked into their life, it'd be a story they'd tell for the rest of their life. It made them that happy. All the other stuff I wouldn't want to have to deal with, but
it's crazy though, that as a teacher and a coach,
yeah,
how you have that influence on so many kids for their entire life. And, for me, not being a teacher, but having coached just as my son had grown up through the years. And we were, I don't know, it's actually a Sellersburg family, but little guy that I coached, he was young, playing up into probably coach pitch, maybe even machine pitch down there in Sellersburg. And 4 years later, I see him at hitting lessons. My son's in there hitting, and he happens to be there. And his dad came over, and he's like, "Do you remember Johnny?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." And he's like, "He told me after he saw you in here last week that he still thinks you're his favorite coach you've ever had." And I'm like,
that's overwhelming, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow. Yeah. And, I've been coaching for 30 years. I've been teaching for 22, and there are literally probably thousands of kids that have come into contact in one way or the other. And I'm terrible with names, but if you can tell me your name and where you're from, because I've been in so many schools, I can probably remember something about you. And, it's definitely been a calling. Being a teacher is not for everybody. Being a coach seems to be for fewer people every year. But, I was telling today, my daughter was at a volleyball tournament and Prodigy, and I was talking to Chris Farrell. Chris Farrell, his daughter is the same age as mine. He's a New Albany police officer, a good friend. I was like, when it comes to my spiritual life, competing I really fall short because when we're going to go, and it's to win. And I'm not always the best example during those times. And he's like, I hear you. But to me, that's how it is. When you go to compete, I'm going to knock you down. But when the game's over, if I won, I'm going to pick you up, say good game. If I lost, get away from me. I'll do the same thing.
Have you had kids that you've coached over the last 20 years, 30 years come back and get in contact with you and that you truly remembered and talk about how you made an impact on everything that they've done throughout their career?
Probably more former students than former players. I think sometimes players don't get it until they get older. But my son Brandon is named after Brandon McGloshin. He's an assistant coach at Henryville now. He was a player of mine, and Maddie actually came up with that name. That was her favorite player that year. And he's always very nice to me when I see him. But former player Ryan Boger, Ryan, you want to talk about doing something. I don't know if you guys know Ryan or not, but he lives in Henryville, and he had a rougher childhood than I ever knew. I thought he had it, for a kid, all kids have it rough, but I thought he had it pretty good. But he had a rough childhood, and, without getting into too many details, he was going to have to leave Henryville and go to another place. And I was asked to write a letter about him and his time at Henryville. And I just was honest. Ryan, I don't remember exactly what was written, but Ryan's a great kid, academically, blah, blah, blah. Henryville's good for him. We'd hate to lose him. I don't want to tell too much, but he was really down at the time. And that letter, he tells me, he remembered, he's 30 something years old. And he tells me now that may have saved his life. And, he was 12 years old, 13 years old. And he's brought that up over and over again. He and I are very close. He reaches out a lot of times. He's been through a lot, and I'm proud of him. He's doing a lot of things to better himself. And, I get kind of a little choked up about it because all my former players, students, I love them. I tell them I love them all the time. And, it's to see kids making something to get out of a hole that it wasn't even their fault. It's pretty impressive. And funny story though. I tell the kids, my class, I tell them all the time, I love them. I said, I love my children differently. I love my children in that if a car's going through the parking lot and they're getting ready to get hit, I will push them out of the way and take the hit. I said, I love you guys in that I will yell, look out. But it makes you feel like that you have maybe done something with your life when a kid comes back. I was just pulled through a drive-through today, and a girl she graduated 3 years ago. She was so excited to see me. It was just like, and the teacher radar or the teacher disguise go, I'm just Perry Hunter. But when I pull up to a drive-through and somebody goes, oh, Mr. Hunter, everybody knows, they can hear, oh, it must be a teacher.
Yeah. What's funny is I was a substitute teacher for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And probably 5 or 6 years after that, I would still have people walking up to me and say, hey, Mr. Hatfield, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. How are you? And I'm like, I don't know how they remembered me. I mean, in some instances, I was there for months, but being there every year with the same students and being able to see them grow. See, that's the one thing that I probably enjoyed with here in Sellersburg. And I remember the very first time that Colin went to a basketball camp where basically you were running the camp. He was probably in second or third grade. And you took the basketball and you slammed it down, and then you grabbed it and you slammed it down, and all of a sudden everybody just stops, and you were doing that, and you weren't mad, but that's just how you were getting everybody's attention.
Well, they start clapping right with the ball, right?
I can't remember, but I just remember when you were doing that, how everybody just wham, they could just hear you, and watching these same kids grow up. From kindergarten, first, second, third grade. Now they're in high school playing basketball, and some of them are playing on Friday nights. And I'm like, this is, for me, it's been awesome. I can't imagine what it would be like to see the same kids all the way through into adulthood too.
Oh my gosh, it is amazing. And then you start getting their kids, but like Trey Kaufman and Cooper Jacoby. I mean, those two guys, we're going to be watching them on television next year. And we've coached them and put them through camp. Coach Hoffman has since they were born. Okay. I came along 8 years ago. So they were in 4th and 5th grade for me. But like Trey, he's in our Dragon Youth League in the 4th and 5th grade. And then next year, I'm going to be watching him play at Purdue. And then possibly, I personally think he'll be an NBA player. That will be crazy to me that, a kid that you coached, or you showed them some ropes or whatever when they were so young, and now they're big time. And Cooper, I still don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. He won't make it to the NBA, but he'll definitely have a pro career, whether it's in the NBA or not. So, I like to go watch the guys that played for us when they play in college. So I told Cooper, no matter where he is, we'll come watch him play. If it's in Argentina, we'll come down there. It'll be fun. It'll be.
I have a picture. Somebody posted it, or I saw it on Facebook, and it would look like maybe they were in about 4th or 5th grade, and it was a couple of the coaches that I know that aren't very tall, and they were all shorter than them, and it was I think it was Trey in the middle, and then Ben Landers, and then
they're all the same height.
Yeah, they were all. Well, actually, I think Holden was taller than everybody.
Yeah.
And then Trey, and then Ben, and then Cooper.
Right.
And you're like, you just don't know what these kids are going to end up being. And when you see them at that, and now that they're big time, and they're going to be playing on Saturday mornings, and and or Saturday afternoons.
Right. Well,
It's going to be awesome.
the cool thing about the Silver Creek kids, and when I coached at Henryville, they're heroes. They are it to a lot of kids, and they've been very good. Kids run up, they get their picture taken, they'll get to sign an autograph. It just, that kind of stuff. Cooper, Trey, Holden, a lot of these guys don't realize that by taking the time, put their arm around them and get a picture taken, that picture is going to go up on a wall, in their room until they become an adult.
Mm-hmm.
To Trey, it's just another picture. And I hope he's done a lot of good stuff. He shows up at birthday parties and some different things. And so
dunks on my son in practice.
Yeah, I think they get it.
Yeah, Colin came home one day and he goes, "Man, I got dunked on twice today."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, hey, that happens." Well, I really we're over an hour now, so it's getting late. Not that I want to end this by any means because I've enjoyed it so much. But again, cornerstonehoops.org.
Yep.
You got the Facebook page, you got the YouTube channel. The thing that I think I got more from this than anything else is that in order to do what you have to do, people have to be willing to step up, and whether it's financial or their time, I'm sure that's going to happen. And as you continue to grow, it's going to be probably easier and easier. But now that you're still new,
Right.
hopefully people will be able to really jump in and help out.
Yeah, and I don't want you to ever you've had me on here and probably blown me into doing more than I'm actually doing, and you've interviewed a lot of people, I'm sure, that are doing way more than me. And I've been on your website and seen some of the things that you guys are, the organizations, but don't ever underestimate a smile and a hello to anybody. And the smiles, you may have to read them with their eyes because of the masks, but I don't ever underestimate taking just a hello to somebody might change their life. And I really, really, truly believe that. So go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate it. This has been great. And thanks again. And
I appreciate you having me.
Good luck with your mission. And I think 2021 is going to be a strong year. So good stuff.
It will be what we make of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Barry.
Yep.